Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I would like to call this special meeting of the Board of Education to order. The next regular Board of Education meeting will be held on Saturday, January 7th at 8:30 a.m. in the board meeting room. Welcome. I hope everyone had a good New Year and a good holiday. I hope everyone got some downtime and also everyone's taking care of their health. I think every time you turn around, someone is not well or feeling well. So let's all try and stay healthy. But I hope everyone had good holidays and welcome back. So this evening is the kickoff of our budget process, and everything with the world must be well because Jack Davis is in his perch on the side there on his bench. So the world is all okay with Jack over there. But thank you all for joining us in person. I'm sure there's any number of people on Zoom. So this evening, the superintendent will present us with the superintendent's budget, and we'll go through a presentation. That's kind of the kickoff of the budget process. I see a lot of our principals and administrators here. So thank you for joining us, folks from the RTM, CDSP, and all our partners. So thank you for being with us this evening. After this evening's presentation by Dr. Adley, we will then anxiously await the Super Saturday, where we will go through RC by RC starting at 8:30 in the morning. And that will be our day on Saturday. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Adley.
Good evening, everybody. And thank you for those of you who have come out this evening, and a special thank you to our administrative team. Excuse me. You got three? I got it. It's wonderful to see you this evening. This is a wonderful opportunity. Presenting the superintendent's budget is always a special time for a superintendent. It's a source of pride and accomplishments, to look at the accomplishments of the district, to recognize what our students have done, what our community has done. I want to thank the board and our community, our administration, our staff, teaching staff, support staff, and our students for the opportunity to lead this outstanding district. It's a privilege and a wonderful responsibility that I cherish every single day. So thank you for that opportunity. I do want to, as we sort of transition into talking about the budget and taking a wee pause and celebrating a little bit, and also looking forward. Any work that's done in the district, as you know, as a board, is done as a team. And I have a tremendous administrative team. First, I'd like to recognize, if I may, my cabinet. I won't go through them all by name because my voice is going to run out. I do want to recognize Mr. Riddle in particular, and the member of the business department for all of their hard work in putting together this budget, but also to all the members of the cabinet. The budget starts at the building level, and that's led by our principals. So thank you to those principals who are here this evening. There's some who are a wee bit under the weather. So thank them for tuning in, but I thank you for all of your leadership every single day. And also to our greater administrative team, that's our department chairs and so on and so forth. And right down to our members of the department themselves, that our staffs in each of their respective departments will come together and to talk about budgets that are presented by the administrative teams from their respective buildings. So as we sort of come together tonight to both celebrate and look forward a little bit, we have some changing times even in our own town. Darien changed a little bit, downtown's changing, commercial. We also have real estate, the construction planning and housing that's going to change both downtown and the surrounding suburbs. So it's a wonderful opportunity to celebrate what's going on in town. We also have our building projects. It's just exciting change that is happening. And our vision and our mission with the strategic goal is particularly applicable to lead us through these times of change, and also prepare our young people for the future, to inspire them for today to thrive in a changing world tomorrow. And goodness knows we do need young people with integrity and who are creators and who will contribute beyond themselves. So it's with that context that we move forward with the FY24 budget. I characterize this as sort of a health and safety learning community as an overview for the budget. This budget aligns to the strategic plan and actually also to the board goals. It increases safety and security. It provides mental health resources, additional mental health resources. It addresses the substitute shortage, and it supports special education's specialized programs. As we go through the budget on Saturday, you'll also see it does some other things, but those are the main themes for the budget. Again, it's aligned to the strategic plan. It supports initiatives within the strategic plan and also board goals that are embedded within the actual strategic plan itself. So as we go through this is gives you a little bit of a sense of the 10-year history that we've had. The FY23 was 3.74. We're not quite sure what the return or otherwise will be at this particular point. But suffice to say, on this particular graph, we're spending about 99.7% of our budgets. So we don't build in any fluff per se, right? In fact, we don't. So 99.7 in any given year is what we would actually spend. An over $100 million budget. That's a good accomplishment. This is our per pupil expenditure. Last year it was 22,800. It's 23,180, and we are, as you might expect, pretty much in the medium range of the Derg age schools for spending. On the right hand side, you might see additional or less revenues that you would expect to either get back or have to raise in taxes if you were in these respective districts. So, for instance, in Westport, if you had our enrollment, you would have to raise another $4.5 million in taxes. So that's the way to read that. I will say, just take a wee moment just to recognize the accomplishments of our staff and our students, and they are many. We continue to be recognized, our young people, for clearly their academic performance. In the last 3 of the 4 years, the high school was recognized by US World Reports as being the #1 school in Connecticut. Student testing continues to be exceptional. Over 1,000 AP tests taken by our young people. 91% of them scored a 3 or higher. With 7 National Honors Scholars, 7 Presidential Scholars, 25 Tremendous Scholars. We've been recognized a number of years as for a best community for music. Our quiz bowls speak for themselves. Robotics is up and running this year. We've had a number of championships, 10 divisional, 5 FCIC, and 5 state championships. By any stretch of the imagination, we're getting a high return on investment. But I will just say this, what I'm proud of the most is the way our young people have rallied together and supported each other courageously and supportively throughout these couple of years. They have been very challenging. And I want to thank the board for your support, for the resources, our community members and parents for your support, and for our young people for stepping up and supporting each other. These have been challenging times, from COVID to significant other challenges and loss that our young people have come to the table with and distinguished themselves in their behaviors more than anything else. So I want to recognize them for that. But we've a lot of accomplishments to be grateful for and to recognize. This is just one graph that takes the average medium language arts and mathematics SAT score and just sort of plots it against the cost per pupil expenditures. So you can see to the left, essentially, if you look at the upper left-hand quadrant, lower per pupil expenditure and higher SAT. There was no one that got higher SATs for a lower expenditure. So it gives a good snapshot of a return on investment. Well, enrollment, and we've had our enrollment report by SLAM. Enrollment report continues to project modest growth. Next year, we'll have 47 additional students, most of them in the elementary school. If we look at 5 years out, we'll have about 100 students. And again, most of those students would be in the elementary sections. If we look at about 10 years, we'll have about over 300 students, just over 300 students, again, mostly at the elementary level. These are particularly our class sizes for the elementary schools, and that this budget clearly supports class sizes. So you'll see in the budget as we go through tonight, and also on Saturday, we'll have one additional section at Oxridge for 3rd grade. We have one additional section at Royal in 5th grade, and we have one less section at Tokeneke in kindergarten. There is an additional instructional para that's added to Oxridge that follows the ratio that we've been following for years in terms of the number of paras per student. The budget itself reflects a 4.94 increase from FY23. The budget is presented as a core budget and also growth expenditures. So our core expenditures essentially as levels. If you're going to level service, what would it be if we didn't add anything or make any changes? And then the growth would be any investments since we adopted the budget. So either this year or in planning for next year. So you can see that the core growth is 3.2, and the growth is 1.74 for a total of 4.94. You'll see we have a higher ECR and other revenues. The other revenues are receipts, gate receipts, facilities, usage, summer school, so on and so forth. So if I look at what makes up the 3.2 in the core expenditures, for the most part, it's the teacher's contract, health insurance, enrollment, which is sort of a net 3.1 dedicated for enrollment purposes, FTEs, utilities, which is our heating and gas, water, and diesel. Those are the main areas that address the core expenditures. When we look at our growth expenditures, we have 11 new positions in special education. We have the director of mental health, which is the security. We have some recommended changes in Fitch. We have custodian at Oxridge. So those types of areas are the main contributions to the growth expenditures for the 1.74. And we'll delineate some of this. It's not surprising that we are a people-oriented business. It's not surprising that our biggest expenditures is around salary and personnel. So just touching on a couple of these, clearly the teachers' new contract, the first year of that was 4.85. We have the administrators, DEA. And if I look at sort of enrollment, there's the position that I just talked about there, the Oxridge, the Royal School, and the -1 Tokeneke, and that just sort of addresses the salaries for enrollment. Budget control, we set at 3, specifically for 3, because there's 3 areas that are close to tipping. So we're conscious of that. So those are the 3 areas. The staff reduction, so on. I'll just talk about that on the next page. We have grant compression, which means we have a couple of grants. A grant that has expired, so that was for the high school psychologist and the SLP at the high school. So this page here sort of gives you a big overview of the net 9.1 FTE increase. So if you just, if for a moment, if you just look down the left-hand side, there's the enrollments for the elementary schools that I've been talking about, the Oxridge. 3rd grade, the Oxridge instructional para, the Royal at 5th grade. So the DH, the high school PE and health. So this was actually on for consideration last year. Those continue to be big classes at 24. There's a number of those classes at 24. We would suggest splitting another couple of sections, given the size of those classes and the nature of the discourse that takes place in this health classes, we feel that just a slightly smaller, down to about 22 students, would be a better environment for that to take place. We also have a couple of sections of science, the science labs. A lot of those science labs are maxed out right now at 24, given safety and security and so on. We'd like just to reduce those just slightly. We also have a couple of programs that we'd like to support, specialized programs in special education. And the first one is that the DHS Excel teacher that addresses our student needs and enrollment. At Oxbridge, we would have a DLC teacher, again, based on the needs of our students at this particular point. And the Oxbridge DLC based on the needs that we've identified for speech and language pathologists. We have 6 paraprofessionals that support our students through the IP process. The school psychologist and the SLP, if you look at the right-hand side, which is the grant compression, that's the IDA ARP grants that expire next year. So we bring them out into the operating budget. We've analyzed the numbers. We still feel that they are merited at the high school. The Oxbridge custodian with the additional square footage, that has been identified. We identified that last year. So it was identified early on in the process. The Fitch represents a 0.2 of an increase in mathematics. The way we actually deliver the mathematics and actually all the courses at Fitch, we feel that there's a need for the personalization of additional section of mathematics. The Mandarin at the middle school, that takes the 6th grade and moves it into 7th grade. So it was budgeted for 0.6. We're looking just for the 2 sections at 0.4. We're pleased to be able to offer American Sign Language, and that will be a section up at the high school for all students. There's the staff reductions that you see. That's one of the ones that I talked about, Tokenique at kindergarten. And then there's 6.8 staff reductions on the right-hand side. If you just between the 2 blue bars, you can see a minus 6.8. Excuse me. That 6.8 is made up of a number of positions. It's minus 4.6 lunch monitors. It's a reduction of 2 teachers in residence. We have been participating in the teachers in residence. We're very supportive of that program. We haven't been able to, this year, we weren't able to get the 2 teachers in residence, given some of the challenges of the budget. It's not that we're not going to do it anymore. We will take just a pause in that particular program for the year, given some of our constraints that we're facing. And then we've also reduced, our suggestion reducing a 0.2 of the talented and gifted at the high school, not to eliminate the program at this point, but just to address the enrollment. We feel we can accommodate the students well with that particular, just one particular section. So this budget tries to address this shortage in substitute teachers. We had about a 53% fill rate this particular year. We've sat at the table a number of times talking about the challenges of getting coverage and the shortage in teachers and the shortage, well, actually the shortage in substitutes and the shortage in all types of school staff, but particularly when we're putting our adults in front of our young people to continue with the education. We feel as if we need to become a little bit more competitive in this. Currently we have got 2 buildings subs. And what we would like to do is for the building sub, we would like to increase that. It's 4 days a week. We would like to increase that to 3 per building and make it 5 days per week. We would like to raise the competitiveness of the salary from 125 to 150 a day. And the daily sub is to be raised from 100 to 125. At 100 for a daily sub, that's barely above minimum wage, and it's just hard to bid. It's a competitive business at this particular point, so we're looking to see if we can actually address that, get better qualified, more reliable substitute teachers in front of our young people. The narration at the bottom just talks about the Affordable Care Act that we have to be conscious of as we implement this. The board is certainly aware of this, and members of the community aware of this, and we're certainly very grateful that this year that we've been able to hire a director of mental health. Dr. Alicia Dad will be joining us in March. We're very appreciative of that position as it leads our charge in mental health and social emotional learning for our students and our staff and the school district. Here you'll see that we also are supporting a position at the wellness coordinator. This is a new position, non-affiliated position. We can fund this or suggest funding this through the ARP ESSER 3 grant. That's different than the grants that we just talked about. That's wellness coordinator would work closely with our director of mental health, would work closely with our counsellors. It would increase the use of the wellness centre for most, if not all of the day, to give the students the opportunity to utilize that facility on a more fuller basis. We're also pleased to look at the Kids in Crisis program that supports Team Talk that would bring, a master's level mental health counsellor into the school through Kids in Crisis in Greenwich, and we work closely with those agencies and similar agencies. This is a nice opportunity to work closely with our counsellors, our staff. The person in Team Talk would also work closely with the wellness coordinator. The safety and security, we are aware of the steps that we've taken. And again, we're very appreciative of the board's leadership in this capacity for supporting additional security for our schools. We do have our new security director, Mr. Kolakowski, who will be starting on Monday. So we look forward to welcoming him to the district, and he will be helping us facilitate the hiring of the SSOs. This is our last year of 7%, unless we can get it somewhere else. I think the quote that we had, Richard, was like around, it's nearly 40% or something ridiculous. So this is the last year of that. We'll have to sort of moving forward, we're going to have to sort of review as to how we address our health rate increases. But there you can see the basic health benefits before any new hires or building subs or otherwise, it's about 1.1%. And the total is 1.5 when you include OPEB. For special education, we anticipate servicing about 882 students or thereabout. This only represents the new personnel in special education. It doesn't represent all the personnel in special education, but we have 11 new positions in special education. You can see the growth there. Our special education operating budget has been reduced by 240. A good chunk of that is about 337 in tuition. We have a number of students who are aging out and other placements. ESY, we have one less day. It sort of falls, first day of ESY falls in the end of June as opposed to July in a different fiscal year. Our excess cost, given that there's a higher rate or higher threshold of 107, we budgeted 109 and we ended up 104. So we have a higher threshold there. We would have an increased revenue of about 474,000 more in revenue with the 70% reimbursement rate. So these budget highlights just sort of fall under the strategic plan. If they hit some other areas, I'll just touch upon them. I'll try not to be repetitive. You can see, excuse me, you can see the first couple that would have addressed. The ASL, Mandarin, robotics, Spanish 5 and 6, guitar. Those are issues those are topics that the board has heard, has come before the board for new courses. And the club offerings is the robotics. We're supporting the class size and enrollment, as we spoke about. Enhancing the programming for FITS, that was the point 2 in the mathematics. The mental health, we're very familiar with the mental health programming with the additional aspects that we spoke about this evening. The new teachers contract that supports our teachers. It recognizes all of the hard work that they've done and also recognizes the effort to retain and maintain our staff. This goal 5, developing and enhancing systems to promote effective communication. There is about $9,000 in there to begin the process of looking at, it's a multi-year process of looking at a possible new student management system. So there's a small amount of money that's dedicated toward that. Excuse me. Under strategic goal 6, the first two bullets I've spoken about, there is a wee bit of expanded space for Fitch being considered, which is about 528 square feet for one classroom and a small counselling office. And then the replacement cycle that's on page 178 of the budget. Primarily, you're somewhat familiar with this. It replaces the 5th grade Chromebooks, for the most part, middle school desktops and high school laptops. Our capital projects are somewhat limited, given the HHR projects that are going on and Oxridge projects that are going to come to fruition at the start of the year. We have a number of security cameras at the high school, about a dozen or so. We're also going to repurpose some of the other ones. Someone wiser than me knows what a variable or volume box is. I know that's a picture of one, but I've been guaranteed that they have to be replaced. We have some audio upgrades. This was presented to the board. Kevin presented to the board the last time we looked at the capital project, but I'm sure we'll look at it a wee bit closer. We enclosed the report as part of the budget process, but that reflects some audio upgrades to the auditorium. We have the new gym wall padding, some masonry repairs that continue at the middle school, and we're adding some, fire alarm strobes to the actual fire alarm boxes themselves. We have a leaf blower, and we also have a truck with a tow on it for snow removal and so on. So it's somewhat limited this year. Those are the big highlights of our 4.94% budget. I'm excited and proud to present this, and we look forward to engaging with our community on all of these topics.
Thank you, Dr. Adley. I think on the last page also, which is good, is just kind of a refresh on the budget calendar coming up. And then, Dr. Adley, all the budgets are on the website and the budget books have been made available. Many have been delivered or picked up.
Correct. The only thing it's not is this presentation, which will be after.
Okay. Thank you.
Pardon me. Thank you for bearing with me, by the way. Thank you.
No, thank you. I feel like now I have a sore throat just listening to you, but thank you very much. Just briefly, a thank you to the principals I see here in the room, the administration, Rich Rudel and his team, all the cabinet, and all the folks in all these schools. I think this budget process usually starts around September. So on top of their day jobs of teaching our students, our principals, assistant principals, and staff are building these budgets. So, a big thank you to all the work that you do. On top of, I look at Luke because I'm on a call with him on a regular basis. Luke's part of building a school, and several of the other principals here are part of HHR and renovating schools. And this is all time and energy that these folks are putting in over and above, their day job of educating our students. So thank you very much for all that you do daily for our students, but then what you do over and above that with everything that we have going on in this community from an investment standpoint in the schools. It's much appreciated. Thank you. So with that, I'll open it up. Any board questions or comments? Sure. Tara. I'm going to try the first names again.
Oh, we can do that now.
Yeah. So I've been told.
So thank you for the presentation and for the budget. I'm glad to see Teen Talk on here, as I've been asking to see a presentation on it for a year now. So I am happy to see that. I would have liked the board to have seen a presentation. And in here, you talk about that they work collaboratively, when from what I know of the program, the point of it is that they are independent so that the students feel comfortable. So I'm curious about that and hoping that we see more detail on it.
Yeah, I think it's a wee bit of both, Tara. Yes. Clearly, one of the aspects is that they work independently, but they'll work closely with our staff too. Thank you.
So will you be doing an additional presentation on sort of the program? I mean, given that I think we'd hope for sort of a 30, 60, 90 day coming out of, that director of mental health, but given her start in April, maybe we could get a little bit in front of that process and talk about this.
We certainly can. It's not unusual that the board would say, can you do a short presentation on this or this or this? Absolutely, yes.
Yes, I think on this.
Yes, of course.
The entire high school program. The plan is embedded here in the short term.
The entire high school.
The program that's here.
Okay,
This
yes,
is a-
yes.
This is, over a longer period of time, so I presumably you have sort of your. What you're planning to do right now in interim while you wait for someone, and we have, I guess. What we'll do to keep this up and launch this, so. Thank you.
Yes, I just have one other question. And I guess it's more of a question for Marge, that are all the positions, like we've heard people talking about that their kids aren't being serviced or we're missing psychologists. Are those positions included in the budget, or are we going to see them as they're filled added in?
They're in
They're in the
the,
budget.
they're in the
They're in
budget.
the
Okay,
budget.
so
So
even
we-
though they're not filled, they're in there.
We carry them all
Yeah.
because we're still looking.
Perfect, thank you.
Good question for clarity. Yeah. All good? Jill.
On the slide number 6, Rich, can you talk a little bit, give us some history on what's inside that column 3, end of year return to town? Most of that is ECR by my recollection, but can you give any additional color to what, how those dollars are usually distributed, or where they came from at the end of the year?
And I'll just add, based on what Dr. Adley, I think used the word fluff, which is fine, or reserves, but I think we should be very clear that when this budget is built, when we review the budget, when we look at the budget as a board, we do not budget for any surplus or any reserves or anything. So I think that needs to be clear and understood, by all. So I'll let you take it from there.
Sure.
Rich.
So it really depends on the year. If you look at last year, over $500,000 of that 694,000 was ECR. If you look at fiscal year 18, some of that was unfilled elementary sections due to enrollment. Some of it was health insurance. If you look at fiscal year 13 and 14, it looks like it was health insurance again. There was one year in which ECR was short of the budget by over $200,000. You also had a year in which ECR was greater than the budget by almost $800,000. So if we look at the big buckets in terms of what created those overages, it tends to be either unfilled sections due to enrollment, excess cost, either positive or negative, and then health insurance. And health insurance can be anything from census changes. Typically when you're fully insured, you have a census, so you have a snapshot. You usually build in like a census variability because people do turn over. And so somebody who might be on a family plan, you might replace them with somebody who's single or vice versa. And so that you have that variability in the census, you could be the over or under depending on how that census shakes out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just follow up on that, given your work in other districts, are you able to opine at all on whether or not this looks fairly typical to you, or whether there's anything unusual that you see happening in Darien?
So the fact that we see, we spend 99.7% of our budget is actually very, very good. In some districts, it's 99, 98, 97%. A few years ago, we talked about a non-lapsing account that there's a state legislature for. That actually grants reserves up to 2%. So that would mean that you only spend 98% of your budget, and then that you carry forward that 2%. So most districts actually spend in that 98 to 99%. So the fact that we're at 99.7 is very good. It means we have a tight budget. I mean, if you look at last year, which is the closest year that we filled out, if you take out that ECR difference, and that ECR difference was primarily just the fact that we got a greater reimbursement rate, not necessarily more claims, we only ended up with a little over $100,000 to return. So $100,000 in a $110 million budget is minuscule.
Thank you.
John.
But some of these years we had pre-buys at the end of the year. So, I would love, if possible, it would be interesting to denote which years we had the pre-buys at the end of the year. And like I look at this year and we'd be running well under budget, but we've added new initiatives during the year also, which is somewhat abnormal, but like.
So for like this year as an example, $400,000 ECR, and then probably about $300,000 for the 3 sections that we didn't enroll. But then when you deduct out like the security initiatives and things like that, you end up being a lot lower.
And then, budget control is another area that seems to have been a source of excess funds, because I don't, when was the last time we extinguished the full budget?
So this year we did the whole thing because of the director of mental health.
Well, okay,
The
but
prior year.
not talking about transfers.
So prior year, we did not. There was one year, I believe it was fiscal 20. We actually didn't use it at all. And then in 21, we ended up using it for a couple elementary sections and then a high school section.
And we've used it for paras in the past.
We have used it for Paris as well.
Thank you, John. Julie?
And I'll just add, because I can't help myself, that I would argue that there were times we should have used it and we did not, and we ended up with sections larger than would have been optimal.
We good? Go ahead,
I got
Sarah.
one more,
Sure.
sorry, just quick. Since cutting down the section of the ninth grade idea, I'd just be curious as to how many students are actually enrolled. Okay. 9.
Any other board questions or comments? Everyone's just
Waiting till
excited
Saturday.
to spend the next day and get into Saturday. Plenty of coffee. So thank you, Dr. Adley, the cabinet, and the folks that are here from all our schools. We appreciate that. So Michelle, with that, we will move over to public comment.
Good evening. For anyone wishing to participate, once called up to either the Zoom or podium, please state your name. You will have up to 3 minutes to comment and address as well. Should we
Great,
start with
thank you.
in person or on Zoom?
Yeah, sure. We'll start with in person. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone in person would like to come up to the podium? All right. Anyone on Zoom?
If anyone on Zoom would like to comment, please raise your hand. Using the raised hand icon.
Nothing?
There are no raised hands at this time.
We'd like to shut it down before Jack Davis decides to talk. So I say that with love, Jack. Yeah. I knew you'd have some type of good comment. Good. So thank you very much. We will see everyone on Saturday. We will start at 8:30. It's usually a busy day. We will keep it a similar type structure, which I'll go over in terms of the board, and then we'll work with the RTM subcommittees, Board of Finance, and our other partners and go through the process that way. And I think that's worked pretty efficiently for us over the last couple of years. So we will be up and running on Zoom. I know some folks will join us on Zoom, which is great. But we appreciate it. We look forward to it. Again, thank you. Happy New Year. Glad everyone is back. And may I have a motion to adjourn? Julie, second by Dennis. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening, and thank you for coming this evening, and thanks for Zooming.